a little bit about this. We are in the Gospel of Mark. You want to throw out a chapter? Because Mark is right. Chapter 7, close, but no. Anybody else want to throw out a guess? Mark chapter, how about adults? Kara? Mark 4 is telling the parable of the story. Ab? The sower and the seed, right? And we just started getting into that about, we talked about the seed, we talked about the sower, and then we were getting into the soil. Question number next, we have mentioned this already, but in cultures, when they, there's this, their word for soul, they have a token or a sign that they all use for this idea of the soul. Anybody? Chloe, remember what that was? The butterfly, right? Because it changes. A butterfly starts out as a caterpillar and then goes into a butterfly. So it talks about change. And so for us to change, God gave us a soul where He connects with us in our soul. Gone through talking to somebody this week, life, and they were asking some questions, and I was able to share with them some things I've been learning about the soul, and they literally said to me, I had no idea. I mean, I know that who I really am, there's something that's here, that was a seal. And then the idea was, and I didn't really understand that God intentionally gave me that to connect me with Him. And that is, you and I were made to have a relationship with God. That, to be connected, it is done. Now, and I mentioned this before, but I want to say this to remind us of something, okay? If your soul is wounded, it's hurt, and it's not dealt with, or if you neglect your soul, can you have a proper soul's neglected? The answer is no. But how about this? Is your relationship with other people going to be what God intended it to be if your soul is neglected or wounded? And the answer is, greatest command, no. It can't. We're to love Him, all that we are, which includes with our heart, soul and mind, but then also to love one another. So everything hinges and falls underneath those two commands. So as we look at the world we live in today, we see the results of neglected souls. Relationships falling apart, people acting out, mistreating one another, crime rates, hostility, all the things that are going on the end to something is meant for us to understand this. And that's why He put so much in the Bible about this. Matter of fact, even in the Bible, there's 20 times where, and so we have even, that's part of Him that He put into us. And so it's an amazing thing to see that this is our connection. And I just want to with God to understand, because here's how powerful this is. As you learn to keep your soul, and we're going to talk that as you learn to soul gets healthy, you have more discernment and you have more connection with God, a healthier relationship with God, what other people need, and you're able to feed into their lives and help them. Isn't that what we want to do down here? Is to help. But have you found out what I found out? That most people are not naturally going to come to Christ solely by you preaching at them. Thus saith the Lord, get right or get left, turn or burn. Matter of fact, we've way for this, really loving people. And here's what I found out, is that one of the main things that God used, loving them with the love of Christ. And so as we, now look, what body, the deal is your soul is healthy. So when my soul is unhealthy, I can say, I can try all I want. I need to love people, love people, love people. I can talk about it. I can get frustrated about it, but I can't really accomplish it. Kind of help people. I'll give you an example. I was at Rural King yesterday. No, I wasn't. I was there Friday. I was there on Friday. And I was going in there to return something. I know I got my days mixed up, but I'm there. I was there on Friday to return something for somebody. I was trying to do a good deed, trying to help out with stuff. And so I go in there, and I go to return customer service. The person had already called ahead of time. I just need to return this and all. Do you have a receipt? No. Well, we can't return it without a receipt. Well, we've called into the manager, and they already said that they could do it and all this stuff. Well, it can't be done. And then that conversation went to several stuff. And the lady, this may shock you, but the lady at the customer service desk was not nice. She was mean. She was rude. Just downright ugly about it. And so as I'm going through that, there's what I probably used to would have done would have been like, look, don't get upset at me. You work here. I'm asking you to do your job. That's the kind of thing that the quicker you do your job, as I'm standing there, now once again, there's a direct connection because God has been helping to work on my soul. And I've been intentionally feeding my soul, and mark this down, your soul must get fed. You cannot be healthy with your soul in food, and it matters what has to do the feeding, right? But you do. You have to feed your soul. So the question I would ask tonight is, are you feeding your soul? Now, God, if you go to God, God will provide the food. But you've got to take that in, and you've got to eat that, and you've got to work to process that stuff. God wants you to, and He's going to help with that. But and we need to teach our part in feeding. I am now more, every time I get a chance, I'm asking adults and talking to them about their soul. Do you believe you have a soul? What is a soul? It's amazing how uncomfortable adults are talking about it. They're uncomfortable talking about their soul. Lost people are uncomfortable because they're like, I'm not really sure what that is that Jesus said on. Save people, and that's it. When you die, that you know. That's just the smallest portion of what heaven is. That's just as that all salvation. Salvation is about heaven. Relationship with God, even here on this earth, and God changing your life. And as you commune and fellowship, the more time you spend communing with Him, the more you look like Him. And the more others see Him in you, right? So this is huge. So there I am. I'm at the Rural King thing, and I immediately, she's has what's going on, issues. She's definitely having a bad day. She sends me to the side of the counter. I'm making a call, trying to get a receipt. In that time frame that I'm doing that, several more people come through, and they're rude to her. They don't have receipts either, and this woman is getting this just over and over again. And so I'm seeing all this to invest and really have up. She needs someone to love her, to care for her. She needs somebody that shows her the kindness so it can fill her cup back up so that she doesn't lash out at people. And so as I'm talking here, I'm going through this, and we finally get the thing figured out and all this, and I sense Him giving me the discernment to say, I just want to tell you to this woman. And so I see all of this extra work that I'm putting on you. I know you're here to do this job, but you're having to go the extra mile. And since the time I've been here, I've seen several other people come up and not been the best with you either. And I guarantee you they're not paying you enough to do what you're doing. But I really appreciate you helping me. Now, I tell you what's amazing me. I literally see the turn. She hands higher countenance. She goes, you know what? Thank you so much for saying that. And you know what? She goes, I want to help. She goes, I'm sorry. I want to help, and I'm glad I can help. It's just been a long day. Come to find out, people haven't been showing up for work and all kinds of things going on at the Rural King. It's just not a well-oiled machine like you might think. And all that stuff going on. And what's happening? She's going through what we're going through. Things. And I don't know what we're battling, what we're feeling, what we're going through. And here's what happens. God has made it where somebody is supposed to come along and put back into that lady and show her kindness and graciousness, right? I mean, absolutely ridiculous grace. She didn't ask. Well, I know, but you didn't ask to be. And but go, I don't deserve this. You know, it was one of those things. I had somebody, they sent me the receipt on the phone. And she said, well, so did you get the receipt or not? And I said, well, I've got it right here on my phone. She's like, how am I going to go over across there to the computer and look this up? You know, it takes that over there. Phone. And I just said, this, when we were done, it put back into her soul, her soul got nurtured. Now here's the deal. The reason I was able to do that is because my soul had been nurtured. And my soul was getting cared. Not have even, because when that person's life, you know why? Because I was in such crisis. And when I'm in that kind of crisis, I can't help or do anything for anybody because I'm just simply trying to survive. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you've to help people and you'd love to think about them and you'd love to be able to see what they need, but you can't have discernment. You can't see what they need and help them because you're in that place. So what I'm getting at is that soul is a connection to God, but it's also how we connect and help other people. And I'm going to say this to you. It's how you get out there at work and in your neighborhood. It's how you relate and help your neighbors and your coworkers and people in this community, because too long we have made getting Christ to people all about, do you go to church anywhere, and inviting them to church. I want people to go to church. People with neglected do this, and they go to church with a neglected soul. There's not much chance of those people staying at that church and getting help. So what I want people to get their souls there and helped and nurture their souls and healthy. Then we can get them into the church house. But remember, the goal is first get them to the Lord. I had a conversation this week with a lady. She's like, I'll tell you what, I don't think I'll ever go to a horrible experience because I've had this experience. I said, absolutely, I understand. She looked at me and goes, what? What? And I know what she's thinking. Aren't you a pastor? I get it. People that, especially people that are hurt people. And you know, hurting them at church, and we want you to be here. There's a lot. And you know what? Sometimes you've been hurt. Most of the time when you're hurt, it's not your fault. If you stay hurt, it's your fault. If I stay hurt, it's my fault because God, I don't take, made a way for me to get. That's there. I just decide not to me to get help. Some people do that. They're just not going to take it. So as I went on and I talked to this lady about, I said, look, the problem is everything you've experienced at church is not the way it's supposed to be. This is the head of this way. And the problem is human beings, when we make church about us, and we make church our way, it's not God's way. So I said, look, I completely understand. Look, don't make your focus about getting through the doors of speaks. Do you feel like God speaks to your folks? She goes, oh yeah, I think He does. I think I'm hearing some of it, but all this other stuff is just, and I told her, I said, I'll tell you what this is doing. All this other stuff is white noise you're allowing to, I know out the voice of God. God will show you if you want truth. The Bible says if you seek it, you'll find it. God will help you with it. As I walked out the door, this lady, she says my name, and I tell her, and she says, hey, if your church is going the way and it's all about what you just said, I'm interested in checking it out because I need that, right? So I'm leaving out of there going, God, we need you work. You know what I'm so thrilled about? I'm so glad when that lady started talking, I didn't go, hold on a second. First of all, I need to make sure you're saved. I need to know in the next 3.4 seconds. And then second of all, I need to know that you're going to church, you're in a good church. I need to know that right now because nothing else. She wouldn't have done that. Is God capable of reaching this woman? Yes. And is He capable of using me to reach this woman? Yes. If I can see what connected with God, true. And and that means my soul then has to be maintained. And that's what we've been talking about is the soul. Now, Mark chapter 4, I'm not going to go through and read it all again. Soil, now the rest of this done, dropped in, the seed is all good seed. The sower is good. The sower is not bad. The sower is God. The seed is the word. That's not bad. There's only good seed. But the first area of we looked at was, remember, we're looking at the soul. That's those that have been hurt. right? We talked about that last week. Now I want to get into the second one, the second condition of the soul, that is the shallow soul. But you know, soul. Here's the deal. There was a second, the seed that dropped in the second soil. There was a little bit of topsoil, but it was very thin layer. And the seed falls in there, but underneath it's all rocky and it's all hard, and there's just not much there at all. And so then there's a shallow soil. There's nothing there for the roots to get into, for the seed to get down into, and it needs to have roots and it needs to go deep, because a shallow life, or in a shallow soil life, in shallow soil until the sun comes out, and then the life just withers quickly because the soil is too shallow for any roots. So when the trial comes and when the sun comes out, it scorches it because it's a surface. It's the world. The world is always working against our souls. To do what? Well, you ought to mark this down. Shallow. The world will all the work system, the things that you're facing in the world, and it's not a harmless thing. It's intentional. It is a world system that is humanistic, that is secular, not Christ-like. Always work in trusted Christ as your Savior, and your soul is saved. That's wonderful for heaven. That's wonderful for eternity. But you need to understand, there will continually be things in your life that will happen to keep your soul. Richard Foster said this: superficiality is the curse of our age. And it is true. It's amazing today, when you look at things, you just don't find much depth in people. You don't find it in many preachers. You know that He loves me, and you're going to hear things like that He loves me. What is the nature and character of God? What does the Word say? There's no depth, and we don't spend enough time studying the Bible and reading the Bible to have any depth. And we need to know there's no shortcut in this. It's no different than the need of seed, a plant. A plant has the same need that your soul does. All right? So the desperate need of the soul is not intelligence. Your soul does not cry out to be smarter. I wish I was more. It's not talented. And their whole goal is to get better at something, or to get more talented, or use their gift more, or become smarter. We have an entire world system that is set up. We try to help human beings get, seems to be the less wisdom we have. And what we need is, the soul is not saying, I just wish I had more diplomas. I wish I had a higher GPA. I wish I just had more abilities. I wish I was better. There are people on this earth that their IQ is not extremely high. They are not extremely talented and gifted. They cannot do a bunch of things, and yet they have a peace that a lot of people don't have. They have joy, and they, like, when it comes to aging, they age so gracefully, and everybody's like, what is your secret? And it's not, and I'll tell you what happens. Sometimes super intelligence can be a curse. Why? Because we think that unless we trust intelligence as the whole purpose of life, or what we depend upon. Same for gifts and talents. Use them. God gave them to you, but that's not it. There are some people who think, boy, my life would be so different if my soul just, more excitement. I'm talking about thrills. We should want to, do things. Nothing wrong with that. There are some people, though, that are always living on the edge. They're always doing something crazy, and they're saying, I just have to make sure that my soul gets what it needs. Well, soul need is not your soul to be deep, to have some depth. I'm talking about some real depth. I want to ask you something. When's the last time, outside of a church service or church activity, that you had a real deep spiritual conversation with somebody else. The lion's den. Killed Goliath. Arthur got it. Good job, buddy. Booyah. Noah wasn't in the lion's den, for those of you that were concerned about that. I know that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about knowing God. I'm talking about people have had God, having some reasons and more concern about it, about the economy and about the things going on in our world than they have even God. And it's because we don't have the depth to have the conversation. I want to take you over to Psalm 42. I want to read Psalm the Soul. It's a great passage. I want to read it to you. It's good. You're going to want to mark some things in there. But really, this is all about the soul having depth. Psalm 42, there. Oh, panteth my what? A heart. Mark soul in this passage. Take a look at what he's talking about. So panteth my soul after thee, O God. What is it that is going after and desiring and seeking God? It's the soul. Always seek a father. Made it, right? Well, it's Father's Day. It'll always seek a father, just like a child will always want. Listen, it is normal, it is right, it is human for a child to want their daddy's love. True or false? A child like every decision he makes. They may not like it when he tells them no, but they want his approval. They want his love. And it's important to them. And listen, kids that don't have a dad in their life, they struggle in this world. Do our society confirm that? That the father absolutely really struggle. Why? Because God meant for their soul to seek a dad, to seek a father. And it's true for us. We're seeking, the soul is seeking the Father. It's in Psalm 42. My son, I'm talking after God. Thirsty before? Talking about where you have been outside and it's 95 degrees outside and you've been working in the garden or you've been chasing something around outside and you are so thirsty. Or how many of you have ever spent a couple hours, how many of you have been to Florida, to the ocean, out there on the sand, and after a couple hours you literally feel like every drop of water has been removed from your body and you literally feel like you can feel and taste the sand inside of you. And a Coke or a Pepsi thirst for what inside needs, and the inside needs water. So this other stuff doesn't quench your thirst. It just makes you more thirsty. You need that water. The psalmist is saying, I'm thirsting, literally thirsting for God like you do for water when you're just about dehydrated and about to have a heat stroke. That's what it's like. Now here's what we'll do. We will fight that to the core and we need more sleep. God, I need to work less. I just need less stress in my life. No, here's the deal. The stress that you do have is God trying to get your attention that your real need is Him, and the only way you'll even look up is when you do in your life. Sunshine. Now, do seeds need sunshine? Here's a true fact. The soil has to be a certain temperature before a seed will even germinate, before it'll sprout. If the soil has to be a certain, doesn't matter if there's not, doesn't matter if the soil doesn't warm up to a certain temperature and the sun doesn't come out and do that, your seed never sprouts and you don't get anything. So the sun is necessary. Get this, the sun represents that later. But third thing, necessary. It is necessary for your soul to get nurtured. You need some disappointment in your life. Does that sound crazy to anybody else? When I say that, I go, no. We need good, that's not right. But the answer is not to get rid of the sun. But the sun will kill a seed that has no depth. But a seed that has some depth, the sun is a welcome. We have some welcome cuts around our house that are completely bare. There's no grass. And the dirt is all packed down. It is hard, like what I talked about last week, the hard soul. I've got some area where it is. This last week, I think Chloe decided, I think it was this last week, wasn't it? Or was it the week before? This last week. They decided they were going to plant some grass seed. Harmless, right? And they know that you have to have water. So on this soil for the, and they wet it all down ahead. That's good. They also knew we probably need some straw, and so they had that straw out there, and they put that grass seed down there, and some days go by, and they watered it for a while, and water is necessary and good, and several days go by, and my wife says to me one day, she said, I don't get, straw, I don't understand what happened. So I'm over there, I'm kind of looking at it, and I'm going, did you at all take a rake, and did you stir up any of the soil and then put the seeds down, kind of cover them up a little bit? And I walked over there and do that. She said, oh, there they all are, right on top of that hard ground. And I'm looking at that, and I just said, well, they have to have, the dirt has to be plowed up a little bit so that the seeds get down in there, and so that covered up to protect them from the birds coming and picking them all up. But they also they need to have a little depth so that their roots can get down and go deeper and they can survive. It's not going to happen if the seed's just laying on top. And I'm like, man, this is good. I'm so glad she messed that up. And I really, and it cost us $13 and some odd cents because we had to get another bag of grass seed. And we're going to have to do it all over again. But it wasn't my job. Chloe's got to do it all over with her mom. But it's a great lesson learned. But here's what I want to get to. Real hard. I want something to soil up. When I was growing up, it was called plowing the soil. You got to plow it up. And then you got to have something to plant that seed down in there. You can't just lay it on the surface. It's going to take some hard work. And it's going to take strong sweat and some work. Yippee-ki-yay, let's see what long and because nothing will happen. Nothing. I can tell you because there's nothing happening at our house where that grass seed was. Except for a few birds getting a free meal. That's it. Right. Now look, here's the deal. Today, seeds and this. I'm not trying to water, straw. I don't know why nothing's happening. I'll tell you why. Because just attending a church service didn't turn up any soil. I don't know. I pray. Give me your thought before each. I can't remember it. I can't for you now. But help me to accept everything that I'm supposed to accept. That's not depth. That's not turning up the soil. I'll tell you what it is. There's some things, and this is what happens, is we go along, we have in our mind, well, out of my little devotion book, I'm really good, and then I'll tell you what happens. Some big thing happens in our life, and we literally fall apart and crumble, and we get scorched. You know why we're scorched? Because there's no depth. A big thing like, I'm talking about some kind of thing that you weren't expecting. How many people have unexpected things happen in your life? Yeah, and they come along and it rocks our world. And we look at this and say, well, I don't understand. But Pastor must not have preached everything that he was to understand. It literally is this. It's like someone that needs water. They don't ever pick it up and drink. They watch other people drink, and they can't figure out why when watching someone else drink doesn't help hydrate them. That doesn't make sense. So we've got God for the living God. This is what the psalm, I come and appear before God. My tears have been my meat day and night. The psalmist had such events in his life that brought him to tears. I've said this before, but listen, a good cry does everyone. I'll try to stop it. Have something going on in your life, good or bad, that brings you to tears, you let those tears flow. And you surround yourself with some people that support you when those tears are falling. Trust them and that love and act like you don't ever have a hope. The psalmist was continually having times of tears. He says, while they continually say unto me, where is thy God? When I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me. For I had gone with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God. Why are of joy and proud, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted in me? I'm going to tell you something. God is going to allow things in your life that is literally going, He yours to have some depth. Growing up on the farm, we would, in the fall, after we would harvest stuff, sometimes we would, before winter, we would fall plow the fields. In February. And then that way and then in the spring, all through we'd come through and we'd disc that field up. It'd already been plowed and all, but sometimes the field needed to be plowed again. And then it was disked. And after we disked it, it still wasn't ready yet to be planted. It had to again. This field. And one time this thing, every time it's taken fuel, it's taken up a lot of time. Of course, he said, what else better do you have to do than what we're doing right here? You ain't got nothing else to do. And I said, Grandpa, how many times are we going to go over this? And here's what he said: produce any as it crop. Here's the truth of the matter. We are unwilling to go through the work and the effort and the struggle and the comfort for our soul to settle in depth. That needs to change. If you want seed to sprout and you want a healthy crop and a healthy soul, you and I have got to do that. David says, why art thou cast down, O my soul? His countenance, thou disquieted me. God, my soul is cast down within me. Therefore, do you see the answer? When my soul is down, I will remember thee. I will go to thee. I will seek after thee. He goes on down here and all the verse. He goes, deals are gone over me. Yet the Lord will command his loving kindness in the daytime, and in the night his song shall be with me, and my prayer unto the God of my life. I will say unto my rock, why hast thou forgotten mine enemies reproached me? Why go I say daily unto me, where is thy God? Why art thou cast down, O my soul? Why art thou disquieted within me? Hope in God, for I shall praise him and the God. Wow, what a passage. As you read and you study the psalmist David in his life, it's amazing to see what he went through and the depth he had. And all of us look at somebody like that and go, whoa! David, what was it said about David? God is a man at Bible, heart and soul. Soul is translated heart many times over. Here he's saying he's a man after my own heart. Now look, the soul, your soul is the deepest part of you. All right? That is the deepest part of your soul. How many of you were familiar with Lake Tahoe? Anybody familiar with Lake Tahoe? Anybody ever been to Lake Tahoe? I have not either. Daniel, have you been there? I just thought maybe with your world travels that you would have possibly been there. I've not been there. But interesting thing, go deep that have been that actually nobody knows how deep it is because nobody's ever been down that far. And there's been just a huge argument of people saying no one really, really knows. Well, they finally had some folks that made it. They had some equipment and ability, and they finally the deep that part of Lake Tahoe is. Now, first of all, you couldn't sign me up for that job if it was the only job on the planet and they were offering $1 million. You know there's some kind of giant squid down there. You know they're doing it. Ain't eating something down there. And they measured the deepest part of Lake Tahoe. Anybody want to guess? What do you think it is? Just throw out a number. In your mind. It's the second deepest lake in the U.S. The deepest one, imagine, and it beats it by 90 feet. Again, that's pretty deep. That's deep. I'm not getting in 90 feet of water anytime. Anybody else want to guess? 150 feet deep? Anybody else? Mackie, you want to throw out a number? Right now, 150, 90 feet. Anybody else want to guess what you think the deepest part of Lake Tahoe is? Second deepest lake in the U.S. The deepest it is in Oregon. Anybody else want to throw one out? 60. That's too good. Real close, Arthur. Two good guesses. Maggie? 230. All right, here's the deal. As far as this team and their measurements, what they found, the deepest part of Lake Tahoe is 1,644 feet deep. Like I said, there's man-eating squids down there. There's catfish that could literally swallow a vehicle. There's all kinds of stuff. In 1,644 feet, can you even wrap your head around that? Now, I'll tell you what I like. I like fishing in a hole that's about 8 to 10 to 12 feet deep. I don't know what you'd find in as I can be. But people from all over, actually people from all over the world go to Lake Tahoe. It's a very famous spot. But you look at this, and that lake has some depth into it. There's some, that you're not going to. Don't be content. Don't be content with a shallow soul. I'm going to tell you this. A shallow soul, it will be less struggle and less hardship, but you will have less peace, and you will have less discernment and wisdom and the working of God in your life. But you've got to dig. You got to dig down. And you know what? Where I've got a one wheel is, the harder a gas-powered auger that I can literally lock up as I'm digging a hole, and it can literally rip my arms off and beat me half to death with my own arms. Because the dirt is so hard. Right? And people look at me. I rented a Bobcat last year. It locked up. Now, my family can pull digger. And some of our souls have gotten so hard and so shallow and are getting scorched by the sun, and there's not the seed there that God intended. And I want to tell you, come harvest by some want a crop. So, here's the deal. How does my soul become shallow? How is it that it stays shallow? My soul becomes shallow when my interest and thoughts go no selfish, self-absorbed person, and all you care about is you. Right? I mean, I'm talking about when you get up in the morning, if the first thing you think about is what you want to do and what you have going on and what you like and what you want about those things, the whole world revolves around me. Now get this, a deep soul. Oh, I'm not there. Oh man, I got to get this other stuff in here first. Okay, all right. So a person, I have so much I want to share. I got to move along on this. Because person, here's the deal. There's a lot going on in this world. It's deep. Life has depth to it, so our soul should as well. Now, a deep soul has a constant connection with God. A constant, consistent connection with God. Here's what I mean by that. 4 to 5 to 6, get alone with God to 10 days, and you're constantly a roller coaster up and down, and you forget about God for a while, then you come back to Him. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I know. I've done that a big portion of my life. Days, and I forgot about God. Got to come. Do you know what that is? That inconsistency is a sign of a shallow soul. It's a shallow soul. Well, everybody struggles with being consistent. I know. Everyone that has a shallow soul. Just things I've been with being, and that bothers me is that I might struggle with consistency across the board on things. And that is something that needs to be important to us. Now, here's the deal. A deep soul has a capacity to understand, ability to understand deeply with other people. This is so important. You may not have walked their path. You maybe haven't gone through what they've gone through, but you have an empathy. You have the ability to have compassion. Look, I know it was Jesus, but Jesus looked on his earthly life with what? Compassion, right? Look, if all I care about is the lady at the Rural King is being mean to me and I don't deserve it. The only thing, if that's all he's being mean to me and I don't deserve it, that's a shallow soul. There's no depth there. It's just my realm. But for me to look and say, you know what? but what she may have been going through, look, I can empathize and I can understand. And there are people in your life that are going through for them, and if you win what they're going through, and not just yourself. A deep soul, boy, this is so good. A deep soul notices and questions what is about just a goal life. They just and get through the trauma. But I'm not talking about clueless. Have you ever known someone who just seems to be clueless? Don't raise your hand. But think about it. There are people in our lives that we go, they're just clueless. They don't have any idea. But the truth is, they're great. But listen, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help us to be that way. You can't make someone else be that way, but you need to care. And so you need to ask questions. A deep soul will notice and question and think, what is God trying to do? Why have happening? What is going on? Right? Hey, a deep soul will look at our world and say, boy, all these riots and all these things that are going on, what is going on? Why is this happening? What's causing this? What is God trying to tell us? What's going to happen to be a biblical church God have for our going along with this? You're looking and saying, okay, so why do some people make decisions that they make? Why are we going through this? Why are we having this? In your life, you need, if you want to have some depth, a deep soul is a problem with asking the hard, and you may get some hard answers. But it's what we've got to do, right? Why is this happening? What is going on? What is causing this? Look, all you kids at school, right? You're going to school. It seems, right? It seems, because here's what most of us do. I'm a victim. Well, you may not have asked for it, and it may not be your fault. But I guarantee you God's trying to do something. It is so important that we are aware and that don't just go through the motions. Look, there are some people that are literally just trying to make it till they can retire and life can be easy and their ship comes in and everything's good. You've got regret. That's all you've got. And maybe a little bit of a retirement account depending upon what the stock market does. That's all you've got. Don't you? Deep soul lives in conscious awareness of eternity, not simply today. The soul is eternal, true or false? There's tomorrow, next week, there's next month, there's next year, there is forever. So I am not just living for today, but the soul is eternal. There's a day where I'm going to. There's a day where my children will grow up and move out of my house, and they do not have to spend time with me. With me? Yes. Do I want to have a good relationship with my daughters? Do I want them to look at Dad and say he's far from perfect, but he's a man that loves God and loves us, and I want for them? I better stop neglecting it. Because listen, while I'm playing the hero and neglecting my soul and daughters that mean the most to me, and we take that for granted, and we think, well, it'll just, it'll just be all right. They'll just want to be around me one day. It'll just be poof. Listen, that's why I need my soul. I can't connect with them. That's so important. I can't connect with God. So this is why this stuff is so important. I'm not even doing this justice. This topic is get it. And if we talk about else gets it, there should be 10 or 15 people in this church that get it because they've been taught it and they can share it with their family, with their kids, with their grandkids, with their this. It'll change your life and everyone your life touches. It's that important. And I believe if just one person gets it, it'll make a difference in the lives of the people that God's called me to share this with the church. But don't make no mistake about it. If I didn't have this church and I didn't have one person to preach it to, God has brought me on this journey for my sake. I know that. Now, I believe you're going to get it too. And I believe you want it. Aware of eternity, because the soul is taught to its soul will. I can't say this enough, but you have to see. you have to take time out of your schedule and your life. You have to devote some time to developing your training, riding and training. And when I trained horses and worked with horses, every horse was different. Just needed to be knocked in the head. With a horse, I got to know that horse, and there were times where I would stand there in the barn and go, I can't figure you out. What do you need? Speak to me. But I would literally say, is it that you need? I've got to figure you out. Some things worked with one horse and they didn't work with another. How many of you that have more than one kid have found that out? You got to do horses, is it? Oh, look, if I was to go around the room tonight, and I'm not going to do this because I'll tell you why. Because when I did this to myself, it was embarrassing to think about. How are you caring for your soul? What is your soul plan? How are you currently? Last week, how did you nurture your soul? I went to church. I read most of it. Have any time last week that we thought about that? That's like literally saying this, I'm sorry, I don't have time to breathe. It's that important to have time to breathe. And so, look, you have a day. How many of you have a daily routine? All right, you try to get up at a certain time, and you go to work at a certain time, or you have somewhat of a routine. Where in your routine is your soul care? And at the time, my answer to that was nowhere, because I didn't feel like I deserved to put any time into my own soul. And that is a lie. That is complete falseness. We must get past too busy. And listen, but you won't be that way for long. Because the soil will dry up, the seed will get scorched, and there will be nothing come harvest time. So this is effort and thought to its development. All right? Depth is a spiritual depth, a spiritual vastness. All right? Matter of fact, God even talks about this when he talks about eternity. He says eternity without an abyss. That is a very deep cavern, an abyss. Job spoke out in the book of Job. He says that he will speak out in the bitterness of my soul from the depths of my being. In the Old Testament, God said, I will make my dwell among you, and I will be you, and my God, and you shall be my people. Everything that God is stands behind this promise. My soul will not reject you. A deep soul we haven't driven by what is easiest or what is most comfortable. This is why we must teach our children to not always do as. Why? Because in their life one day, they're going to need to take the extra mile. It is important that they can do this, all right? The deep soul. This is some thought and all about death. Turn up this soil. When we did our garden this year, we had not had a garden out there at the place yet, and so I knew it was going to be the dirt, the soil, the ground was hard plow, and if I followed the soil, I would have disced it up, and I would have been in farmer's heaven. But I couldn't find anybody to get me a John Deere tractor big enough with a plow and a disc, so it couldn't happen. So I had to just rent I'm going to tiller, and my expectation. This is a great lesson to learn. My expectation was that a tiller would do the same work that a plow and a disc, a farming agricultural plow and tiller, that you will a plow behind a great big John Deere tractor. Some of us have major problems in our life because we have unreasonable expectations. That's another sermon, but I'm throwing it in there. The place are too good not to. The lady said, well, how didn't work? And I said, not at all. She's like, well, what happened? I said, I fought this thing and it just didn't work, and I needed something more. Really needed a plow. She said, well, we don't have any plows, but we do have a hydraulic deep tiller that weighs about twice. I'll let you just take that and use it. I'm like, oh. So I took that hydraulic tiller out there. It still like to beat us to death, didn't it, Kel? I mean, it was, our arms fell off several times. But that it eventually got down, and it dug down in there. And you know what? Now I walk out in that garden. Chloe and I planted corn. We became corn farmers this year. We planted corn out there. That corn is doing great. You know why? Because we stayed the course, and we got a tiller that was able to dig up the dirt. And you've got to sweat, and you got to stick with it, and you got to get frustrated a little bit, and you got to have questions, and you got to cry a little bit, and you got to be willing to deal with the unknown. But listen, most of us, when our lives get a little bumpy, we get so fearful and so concerned that we for us, and we never. So here's the soil. God says, Jesus is telling this story. There's a hardened soul. There's a soul, the soul. But of course, I'm not going to get to those tonight, which I kind of thought I had hoping that I was, but I'm not. So next week, I'm going to get to that, because here's what you really want to know. Coming up, and how do we have that? A soil that is just producing. The seed is good, and the sower is good. That's not the problem. The problem is the dirt. I love work in the spring, and I drive by, and I see this black soil. I see this dirt that is so dark and so rich. And what do I usually say, girls? Look at that dirt. Look how black that dirt is, right? Now, soil, that's about dirt. Why do we get excited about dirt? Because we know what good dirt can do. If the seed is right and the farmer knows what he's doing, the farmer's good. You get his seed is good. If you get him some good dirt, he'll do what you could never imagine with that seed. And that dirt is a healthy soul, which means this. It is. You have to change your goal from, I just want to feel good. Because having a deep soul means there's going to be times where you don't feel good. Because you shouldn't. Because things aren't good. Hey, your parents gave you a job, they're out there, and you're kind of moping around, and you're kind of, I'm going to break a nail, I'm going to get my hands dirty. And your parents are like, roll them sleeves up and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You ever had a there? And I care of chickens with my dad or who I was with, some parent, and I walk in there, and chickens are nasty. Aren't they? They're nasty. They're dirty stuff to do. And they're vying the egg, and they're on the nest. You go in to grab that egg, and they wait until that wrist is up, and you're vulnerable, and you're going in to get that egg right there. And then next thing you know, they just bury their beak right in your. I'm not going to talk about my response. The older I got, the less it was a repeated problem. We had less birds. I don't even remember what my point was with this story. I got off all so excited about these birds. Anybody remember what my point was on this story? I was right there. It was going to be good. Oh, I don't remember what it was. Correct? And so when I went, and of course, you know, these birds, they're not, they don't have, there's not plumbing in there, and they're not all clean and careful. They just, you know, they just take care of business wherever they want to. And so you go in there, and I remember trying the bathroom. One time I went as I was getting that egg. I pulled back the arm, and it was just like, I just knew gangrene just went all the way up. It just all over the place. And I as a kid, I was like, ah! And it went to the bathroom on me. Oh, I thought it was something serious. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. You'll wash off. You'll clean up. You know, get in there. And you know, as a kid, of course, you've got permission to kill. Careful, and after you. As a kid, you don't have permission to do that. You kill the bird, the parents get angry at you. The bird's life is worth more than yours. The bird lays the eggs, right? And I remember as a kid, and so you go in, and of course, to go after your parents. But when you bird out of the way, he just eyes you and says, "Go ahead and try it." But in life, listen, in your life, now listen, most of us have no problems getting our hands dirty. We ain't got no problem going in somebody else's chicken coop, going after their lives. We got no problem with that. Do you know what Jesus said? Jesus said, before you go over there, hands dirty and right here. We better beware of the person that is always critical of everyone's faults and failures. We've got to be willing to get our hands dirty. And I want to tell you what soul work does. Soul work is dirty. Soul care, you'll sweat, you'll bleed, you'll have tears. It is hard. There'll be times where you look up at God, you'll say, I want to go home. And I don't mean the house over there on 700. I mean up there, I want to go home. I'd rather be with you. And God says, oh, stick this out. And I've been through it now, and I'm not all the way. It was David in Psalm 119 when he said, it is good for me that I have been afflicted. I had gone astray, but now I've come back. Now there is that healthy soul. Remember what Jesus words with this. Broad is the way to destruction. Narrow is the way to what? Narrow when it to life. That's not just a way as well, right? Just shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and lose his own soul? The question we could ask Bill Gates. If we did get a question that we could ask, but neglected our own souls. Heads bowed, eyes closed. I'm going to close out in a word of prayer. We'll be done.